guys, welcome back to Cottonwood Hill Farms. It is a hot one. It's a hot one today. It's been hot the last oh heck, the last couple days for sure. It's been really hot. It's been nice, but it's been hot. It hasn't been too humid, but that's because we're kind of dry. We did get some rain. We got quite a bit of rain over the last 2 weeks. We've gotten upwards of 4 inches, I believe. I didn't keep a very good track, but I know we got somewhere around there, so that's fantastic. But we still need more. I mean, the ground was so dry and cracked that and that was, we had a couple. It wasn't really a gully washer. There was some heavy rains in there, but it was a lot of nice steady rains, and so it did get to soak in, which was good. But like I said, it's dry again, and we definitely could use some more. And the heat is here. The summer heat is starting to kick in a little bit. But what I thought I'd do today, I haven't really went over how we compost or how we fertilize and make our own fertilizer and our compost. So I thought I would do that today and kind of show you guys what we got going on here. And I thought this was a good time because I had to go pick up a load of compost today. So basically what we do, we try and utilize everything on the farm. Obviously everything is a resource to us, and we rotationally graze. Our chickens are free range. We try not to keep them, we try not to keep them locked up at all unless inclement weather, obviously, storms, bad snowstorms, things like that. But other than that, we let the hens go. The meat chickens, they're in those tractors, bottomless tractors. If you haven't seen the couple videos on when we put the meat chickens out, or the chicken tractor that I built, I'll put a link to those in the video. You should go check those out. But anyway, so our meat chickens, they're raised on pasture, moved every day, excuse me, to fresh grass. So their manure doesn't build up, obviously, it stays out in the pasture. And the same with the cows. We rotationally graze our cows. And so we try and keep everything, you know, less diesel fuel, less machinery. We try and keep everything out on pasture. By that way, the manure's out on pasture. It all stays it's all cyclical. But obviously during inclement weather, during the winter months, and even sometimes throughout the year, we have to have animals on dry lots and we're feeding them hay, things like that. So manure does get built up, and especially over winter with the fresh cows, and you know, spring and fall when it's nice and wet and muddy, we keep them obviously in dry, try and keep them on dry bedding. Well, all that bedding, all that manure that does pile up that we do have to get rid of, we compost it. Obviously, we bring it down. I haul it down in the field to different places on the farm, and I'll make compost piles. And I try to rotate our compost piles because this farm was, you know, I guess I've been doing the regenerative thing for, gosh, this has been 5 years now, something like that, fully regenerative. Before that, we were kind of dabbling and kind of switching over, and it took a while, but I think it's been 5 years now. So, but before me, I started farming this place, and I rented the entire farm in 2013, I believe, was my first growing season. There was about 4 acres up by the house that when Grandpa got cancer, he let me play with that, you know, cutting hay and things like that. That was back in, I think that was in 2008. That I started cutting hay and baling hay and things like that up on that 4 acres. And then in 2013, I finally, after Grandpa passed, I finally talked to my grandma into letting me rent the entire farm. And I did corn and beans those first couple years. And actually the first year I did corn, all corn, the whole 58 acres, tillable acres was corn. And then after that I switched it up and split corn and beans. And then from then on I slowly started putting headlands in and backing off and adding pasture and alfalfa. And then by I think 15 or 16 was the last year I had any row crop, and it wasn't much. And so that's pretty much when I switched over and we started really rotating the cattle and composting. And I quit using synthetics, I want to say completely, in 2017, I think was the last year I used any sort of synthetic. And so now we don't use any synthetic fertilizers, we don't use any chemicals, we don't spray, nothing like that. And so what I try and do is I try and rotate the compost pile, because after those years and years and years of just corn and beans every year, and back, they've been doing no-till for several years, but even before then they were doing heavy tillage here. And so these hillsides are still in really rough shape. Even with what I've been doing the last few years, it's going to take a while to regenerate these hillsides. And right now where I'm standing, I call this the horseshoe. and it's about in the middle of the farm, I guess you could say, but it's the worst soil on the farm by far. And I'll show you here. This is our compost pile right now that we've got going on, and it's been here for, oh, not quite a year, I think, or coming up on a year or something like that. But this right here is kind of a, it's kind of a horseshoe right here. There's a terrace that goes up all along around right here, this terrace, and it curves around right there and goes all the way back over to there, and then there's the road over there. And then that's those trees right there. Our property line comes down along the road, hits those trees, and then it angles back and comes up this hill. So that corn over there, right there, that's not ours. That's not our corn. But that's the fence line that goes up the hill right there. So anyway, this bowl right here, it's just, the soil has been depleted for years, and there's virtually no topsoil at all, or not much, I should say. Now, if you look over here, and I don't know how well this camera is going to pick this up, but over on this hillside here, this is an alfalfa pasture mix that I put in several years ago. It's probably been 6 years, 7 years, something like that. And I don't know how well the colors will show up, but it's more of a yellowish. It's not a deep green. It's not near as thick, and it's not near as tall. And I don't know that this is going to show up. But anyway, you can take my word for it. It's just not, it's not very good. Well, I've done nothing with that hillside. I haven't other than grazed it. I've grazed it and then cut it for hay, and that's about it. Now this hillside over here, what I've done over here, and it's kind of, let me get over here and see if you can kind of see, in there where these spots, they almost look like bare spots. What I've done with that is, the last several years I use that for my winter feeding area. So I'll try and keep, you know, before we had dairy cows, we just had beef cattle. So I would run the beef cattle out here, excuse me, and I would park the hay wagon up there along this ridge just below that terrace, and that's where I would feed hay all winter long. So all of the manure, all of the hay, everything would pile up along the bottom of that terrace at the top of this hill. And then as the spring rains would come, it would leach down through the rest of the hillside. And I should say, on the other side, the cows are over there right now. You probably can't even tell, but over by the road, I dumped a ton of manure down there. That was several years ago. That was kind of when I think that was right after I first planted that into grass. And so I coated theirs. There's probably, I don't even know how big the area is, fairly large area that I just coated probably 6 to 10 inches with just manure on top. So that I replenished that area. But then the rest of this hillside over here, like I said, I use that for a winter feeding area. And so that's starting to get high in nutrients. It's starting to build up some topsoil, and then the nutrients are leaching down, because you can tell by the color of it that it's actually kind of working. And when you walk through it, it's a lot thicker. Now, all these you'll see these little saplings that are coming up here, and I'm not super smart when it comes to soil fertility. But what I can tell you is that those saplings are a result of either the lack of a nutrient or the abundance of a nutrient, because that's the way the earth works. When you have a lot of certain kinds of weeds or shrubbery, things like that are popping up, it's usually the earth trying to heal itself because it has too much iron or not enough iron or things like that. And so that's what I can tell you, is I know it's because of a deficiency of some sorts. That's why those are popping up. I'm not real worried about those. The cows chew on them. I can shred them off. It's not a big deal. I'm just kind of letting them thrive at the moment. And then the cows do like the leaves on them. But this hillside, so that's what I've done over here. And you can tell here, same thing, below this compost pile right here, it's very thick. The grass is nice and tall, but as you get down, you know, further, and I'll walk down in here, as you get down further, it's super thin. Just the soils are yellow, just depleted. And you can tell right here as I'm walking how see there's bare spots around here, and here's really thin. And this is obviously a rough year because we haven't had much rain at all, and last year was somewhat of a drought too. But like this spot right here, I mean, not hardly anything grows. And so with that first year that I planted corn on this hillside over here, the corn, it was like 3 feet tall, and a lot of it didn't even have an ear on it. And same thing on this hillside. So what I started doing, like I said, was I started putting the compost pile out here, and with the same idea with the compost pile as rotating the cows out and making the winter feeding area on that hillside. The idea is, as the rains come through, when we do get them, is it leaches down from the compost pile, and it it helps build up nutrients back in the soil. And so that's kind of the idea here. Now, as far as the compost goes, that's a combination of some of our chicken litter, from like the brooder, things like that. It's also, there's some horse manure in there from we got a couple horses, and then the majority of it obviously is from the cows. There's a little bit of hog manure in here too. I do clean the hog, I have cleaned the hog pen out a few different times in the past, but the majority of this is cattle manure. And you can see in here, I don't know if you can see, but yeah, see how dark and moist it is. I mean, it's nice and warm, very moist. This is there's obviously a lot of hay, or there was a lot of hay. Well, what we do is we get our compost, or excuse me, there's a guy in Council Bluffs that raises, he grows mushrooms, and I met him I think it's been 2 years ago now, through a friend, and he had all these mushroom blocks he didn't know what to do with. And so I said, absolutely, I'll take it. It's, you know, filled with mycorrhiza. That's like kind of like the base of life, basically. So I get trailer loads during the summer, it's probably once a month, and then during the winter, it's maybe every couple months. But I get a trailer loads of this mycorrhiza, these mushroom blocks. And so we started incorporating that in with our compost. And before we started incorporating that, it was taking us upwards of 18 months to get everything broken down. You know, we got, like one year we got the local power company has another company come through and trim all the trees off the power lines. And so when we can, we try and get those wood chips and bring those in and put them on our compost pile and stuff like that, and all the hay, the bedding, everything. Well, it was taking upwards of 18 months. Well, now that we're using these mushroom blocks, we're turning that into compost, into black dirt in almost less than 6 months. It's amazing how much faster it works. But I'll show you here. This is what I picked up today. I just went and picked up a trailer load. Now this has got to be somewhere around 8,000 pounds, I'm assuming, just from the way it pulled with the truck. But this is probably one of the biggest loads I've ever gotten from him. It took us a while to load it up. This is a 14-foot dump trailer, so it holds quite a bit. But this is what we get. We get these bags right here. This is what they come in. That's the only downside, is you got to process them, but it's I'll take it. I mean, for what we're getting, it's really not that big of a deal. So they come in these bags right here, and then there's my neighbors have they got a litter of kids, great people, and their daughters are very hard workers, and so I just pay them to come down here and they process all these. They pull the bags off of them and just dump them out on the ground, and they'll process this whole entire trailer in 3 hours or so for me, and then I pay them. Well, then after they get done, I'll obviously get the trailer out here, come down, and I just take the skid steer or the tractor and I'll push this up into a pile, and then I kind of mix it all up. And then I'll even take, you know, because we've got other manure piles around the farm too. There's another one up by the farm from that I haven't hauled off yet, and I wanted to leave that up there anyway, because that's from the winter bedding this past winter from the dairy cows, or the fresh cows, and I'm going to spread that up on that pasture yet this summer. And so I took a big scoop up there and dumped in and mixed up with that up there, and so I'll take it and kind of strategically place it around the farm. But then the idea is to help build soil health and get the mycorrhiza and the microbial life in the soil alive again, because it's just been dead for so long. But that's kind of the gist of what we do here. And then like you can see here, I've spread this out. You know, I don't use one big pile. I spread this out, and then the idea is same thing like I said before. I make like a terrace here, but that way as it rains, everything leaches through and it filters down through the ground. I mean, this alfalfa up here, I mean, you can just see how tall, and I don't really cut this much because right now it's it's around the compost pile, but you can see how thick and lush this is compared to the rest of these hillsides. So that's kind of how we do our composting. And like I said, I'll move this won't be here again next year. Once I get this cleaned up and spread, then I'll probably move over, maybe over to here, or even to that hillside, I'm guessing, next. And then there's another spot in the back of the farm. Eventually I'll get to there, and then there's another spot over closer to the farm, or the buildings, that I'll do over there. And I'll probably do a compost pile over there maybe later next year or something like that. But I try and strategically place it around the farm. That way when it does rain, it's going to leach down, and it's going to filter and help fertilize the soil that's around it. And you can tell a difference just where my first compost pile I had was kind of over by the field entrance right over there. And it took a couple years because it was pretty hot. Once I got all the compost off of it and spread, nothing grew for a couple years because it was so high in nitrogen and nutrients. So it took a couple years to filter out, but now that's probably one of the most fertile spots on the farm. And then I think it was last year that I had my compost pile right up, it was right up here on this ridge, and I used that to spread around on this top part here. And same thing, it's that spot, the the grass, what grows up there is, you know, twice as tall, twice as thick as everything around it in that exact spot. But it makes it easier, and plus then when I go to spread it, it's already out right where I need it, and I can spread it right there, and I'm not traveling a long way. So that's kind of how that works. And I'm very fortunate to be able to get these mushroom blocks with this mycorrhiza. It's the best thing since sliced bread, in my opinion, when it comes to fertility, fertilization, and it works wonders too. So, and you can kind of see this was processed this winter, but it's kind of what's left over from it. I need to push this up and mix this up one more time before I go and spread it. But look, I think this is, I bet you that's some is that lion's mane? But anyway, I'm getting kind of long-winded here, but that's kind of the gist of how we compost. And then we have some neighbors that they'll bring their leaves and some yard clippings and things like that up here, sawdust, things like that, they'll mix in with it. So we try and utilize everything on the farm. And another thing we're looking at doing, because we have so much compost and we're getting so much of these mushroom blocks, is I'm hoping next year, or that later, I should say this winter, to start bagging this and actually selling it as a soil conditioner, because we just have so much of it. And I know that's a decent market right there too. So, you know, and then the other thing too is we're not, this takes care of a lot of our fertility around the farm. The animals take care of a whole lot too, but we are looking at probably next year using there's a liquid fertilizer. It's quote unquote organic. He is not organic certified, which I respect that. We're not, and I never will be. But it's an organic matter mineral mix, and that's probably something we're going to look at doing next year, just to kind of speed up the process, just because it takes so long to get your soil health turned around after so many years of depletion. And that's going to kind of give us a little bit of a jump start on that. So we are going to take probably 15 acres or so, and we are going to do some liquid fertilizer from that guy. It's Earth Soils out of Minnesota, and the guy's got great blends. And so I think that's something we're going to look at doing next year too, adding that in with with our compost as well. The other thing I'm looking at doing too is taking this compost, and I'll do a video on that when I get to it, but I'm going to use a couple food grade totes and start making a tea. And I know a lot of you out there are probably familiar with making compost tea, but that's something I really want to start doing too, is compost tea. And then build a high flow sprayer that I can go kind of spray that compost tea out in a few of the really bad spots. So anyway, that's just kind of this might be a boring video for some of you, but I wanted to go over that and just kind of show how we do it, how we compost, how we make our fertilizer, and how it works. And I thought today would be a good day, considering I brought home a huge trailer load of those mushroom blocks. So anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this. If you found it interesting, give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button so you don't miss any videos coming out. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. We're pretty active on there. We try and keep everybody up to date on what's going on the farm. And you know, transparency is kind of our big thing. We're not organic certified, and I never will be. I don't need the government to tell me how to properly raise food for my family and for other people. But because of that, we always have an open door policy, and so we always let our customers and our members come out and kind of see for themselves what we're doing and how we're growing things. And they're much better inspectors than anybody from the USDA would be. So anyway, guys, thanks for tagging along, and if you're still watching, we really appreciate it. And you guys take care. We'll see you in the next one.